set?
And
Do I look at him or in the camera?
look right in front.
Okay.
Mike, go back to the beginning a little bit. Bobby Stewart, what kind of influence was he in your life?
Well, when I first met Bobby, he'd really more concerned with me going to school and getting my grades up in order for me to start boxing with him. So after I went through that stage, I went and I completed my grades and I was doing successfully well. Matter of fact, great. And then after that, we started training. And as long as my grades and my levels stayed up, he would remain interested. And that's how, when I gotten good enough, he took me down to Cuss. And if it wasn't for Bobby, I wouldn't be here now.
When he first approached you about boxing, what was your initial reaction?
I approached him, I said I wanted to try boxing, and then we boxed, and he beat me up real bad. And I said, well, I want to box, I want to be a fighter. And he said, sure, everybody that comes in here wants to be a fighter. And that's when we went to the agreement stage about doing well in school in order to box.
He claimed after just a few lessons, he had to start training just so he could stay with you in those sparring sessions. What were they like after you picked up some of the art of boxing?
Well, I enjoyed it, but, it was just as hard for me. Some days I didn't want to box, but, he said, you want to box today? And I wouldn't say no. So I wanted to learn, so I continued, yeah.
When you first started, were you dedicated right off the bat?
Right off the bat.
Okay. When did you realize you had a talent that could really propel you to this height?
When I was around 14 years old.
What made you realize it?
When Cuss used to always talk to me about the situation, he was saying, if you really took a deep interest in it, you would be champ of the world. And he would say, with no problem, you would be champ. Because he was saying, you're just too good for these guys. Even at 14, he was saying, they know more, but you're just too good. And I said, really? And I didn't believe him at first, but he just kept pounding that information in me. And by the time I was 14, I began to believe it.
Your amateur career, you didn't have a lot of amateur fights. We did the Junior Olympics in 81 and 82 where I don't think either fight lasted more than 20 seconds. What do you remember about your amateur career?
It was really, it's not much I can remember because it was very short. It wasn't a vast career, but it was rules that I couldn't handle very much, because Cuss had prepared me for professional fighting, and the rules there were so much different. But in amateur boxing, Cuss really didn't care much about how many fights you won. He just wanted me to get the experience of fighting in front of a great deal of people and everything like that. And so I would just fight as often as possible.
The loss to Tillman, Cuss claimed it was political, your manager claims it's political. People who saw the fight can't believe it was lost. What's your feelings on that loss in that Olympic box off?
Well, it was at that time it was a horrible loss, because, like every kid, you want to represent the country in the Olympic at that particular time. And it really hurt because I had to go back home, and I said, oh man, I wanted to go back to school with the Olympic gold medal around my neck. And so I said, well, it's just something I have to chalk up with experience. And I progressed a great deal beyond that. And it's different that I'm just at a different stage than him altogether. And when the Olympic guys had to transform to professional fighting, they had a very difficult transaction in doing so. And when I first started in professional boxing, I was hit off right there because I prepared from the beginning.
When you started your professional career, Cuss had you going 2 fights a month, to fight every 2 weeks. What was the strategy behind that, Mike?
Well, it's to get immune to fighting as much as possible and getting immune to the crowds, and this is what happens. And you stay in shape, it's so difficult to get out of shape because you're fighting so often. And the more you fought, the more experience you got.
I've done a couple other camps. I did Hagler camp and Leonard camp when he was fighting. I've never seen training like you're training today, the sparring in the ring. How does that prepare you? Obviously, your sparring is different than anyone else's I've seen, including all the other champions. Why is it different? Was that one of Cuss's things?
Well, in order to fight, we don't want anybody going home besides saying, well, we didn't go hard. The idea is to let them fight as hard as possible. This is a fight. You go in there and you fight as hard as possible. My trainer tells them, you go in there and you fight. You fight. This is, don't take it easy because he's 18 or he's 17 or he's 20. You go out there and you fight. You fight for your life. It's go out there and fight for your life. And that's just to get ready to fight. That's how come I'm always in shape, because when I fight in the gym, it's a fight. I fight. And that's how come all the layoffs, like the 2 months, don't bother me, because when I'm in the gym, I fight.
Cuss, obviously tremendous influence in your life. Talk about your relationship with him.
Well, Cuss and I, we had it was a very close and intense relationship, you know what I mean? We always talked about basically things about being successful, handling success, because you always know we get there. He would always say, there's always people telling you, if you work hard and you stay in a straight line and you're honest, you'll be very successful, but there's never people to tell you how to handle it. There's never anyone around to say, well, this is going to happen. This is how you handle it. We all know if you work hard and be honest, keep a straight line, don't get in trouble, no drugs, anything, you're going to be successful. Anyone, you're going to be successful. But when you get there, that's where it's going to be the most difficult part of your life. And we used to talk about that all the time. And sometimes when I used to get in attitudes, he used to say, oh, so what are you going to do when you come a big-time fight, when you're champion? I was just a young kid. He said, when you're champion, what are you going to do? You're going to tell them, to hell with me now? You got to learn these things now, because a lot of things I didn't want to listen to him about, like school and about like people that you hang out with. He would say, like, you shouldn't be with these people because you're special. And you don't want to hear that when you're like 13 years old, 12 years old, and you're hanging out with your friends. You don't want to hear that. It's like your mother saying, stay away from the guy next door, and you and the guy are like best friends.
What was it about him that he was able to really take the talent you had and draw it out and refine it to what it is now?
From what he used to say, he was such a genius. He knew human nature, and he knew me. And he would say, only thing you need is the confidence. He said, that's all you need. You're better than, at 15, you're better than the heavyweight champion of the world, but you just need the confidence to believe that you are. And I would never think that, I would never think from his 15 years old, I could beat these guys, but I never really dreamed that at that kind of level that I'd be ready to fight those kind of guys. But he used to bring top-notch professionals, and he used to say, spar with them, and he used to tell them, when the bells start, do your hardest. Don't take it easy because he's 15. Go out there and do your best. And he used to tell them, and I used to have to fight hard because I know those guys used to have to do their best. And never, ever since I started boxing with Cuss and sparred, never have he told the guy, lay up, come on, you're too tough for him. Never. Because he knew that in his heart he believed I was good enough, and he would never do that because he knew that I could take it as well as dish it out. And he never told anybody, lay up, take it easy around the body, take it easy this, you're too good for him, lay off a little. He never had to say that.
When he died, what did you do to try and fill that void in your life without him there anymore?
Well, nobody's got to, he's there. Cuss, he's always in my mind. I think about him a great deal, but his goal was to make me independent, of him, I can't, depend on him. I had to be independent of myself and depend on myself only. And that was his goal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
My goal is just become a champion, you know what I mean? His goal was making me independent, making me a man when I didn't have to need him anymore. And he used to discuss that all the time.
The first fight without him, emotionally, was it a little different for you?
No, because from as soon as I started boxing, we had discussed, no matter whatever happens, the show has to go on. Sometimes you might have to fight and you might not even get paid, It's a freak accident. Something might happen. You can't get money, but you can't pull out. You can't be unprofessional and say, well, I'm not fighting because I'm not getting any money. The show must go on. It has to go on, and that's how we work.
Did you take any of that hurt into the ring against Eddie Richardson and try to make it work for you?
Well, no, because that's unprofessional. It's where you use your emotions, and when you're fighting, you're supposed to be unemotional. That's like a lot of guys that's tough in the street can't become fighters because in the street they're angry at someone, and when you're angry, you can fight anybody. You can fight Hulk Hogan if you're angry at him. But when you're in the ring, the guy never did anything to you. You're not angry at him. That's when you need the discipline to make you focus and say, well, this is a job and it's a fight, and remember what you learned in the gym.
If Cuss would have been there for the Berbick fight, would he have been totally happy with what he saw?
No, not at all. Cuss is a very big critic. He's always critical about things. If it's not perfect, he'll let you know. And if you made mistakes, he will let you know.
Jesse Ferguson, I'm sorry. Just going back into your career a little bit. He was really the first name fighter or the first big-time guy that you fought. What were your feelings heading into that fight?
Well, I was very confident as always, but I knew he was a tough fighter. I watched him on my fourth pro fight. I watched him win the ESPN tournament, and he looked impressive. And I watched him lose a close fight to Carl Williams, and he also looked impressive by dropping him twice. But I was sure that I was confident and I was going to be successful in the match.
As you look back Are there certain fights that stick out to you as fights where you learned a great deal more than other fights? Are there certain opponents you learned more about boxing in that match than, say, other opponents?
Well, not really, because when I fight, after the fight's over, I forget about it. But I remember my next fight, what the guy did, and I remember what to watch, like from other guys when I see them fight. I chuck it all up. It's all experience, when you come down to it. But I never think about what this guy did and what that guy did, and which was my toughest or whatever.
What about the first time you had to go 10 when Quick Tillis pretty much ran from you?
Well, that was more or less my inexperience and confidence. I wasn't sure of going to 10 rounds. But, after finishing the 10 rounds, I said, wow, it wasn't that bad. I had a lot more left.
The Ratliff fight. That was the first time they brought you out here. You were away from home for a prolonged period of time for the first time in your life. Was that a little tougher for you?
Well, not really. In a way it was, but I've been away when I was younger. I've been away for 2 weeks before when I was a kid. And I used to fight, I used to be away a lot of times. But with fighting Ratliff, he was a former champion. And after losing his title, he just lost the title and he won like 2 other fights. And, I had, emotions about the situation. But the time comes when I'm in the ring and I know that I'm the best. As soon as I'm in the ring, I dwell on my adrenaline and everything. And I knew I was confident. I knew it would just take a matter of time and I would catch him and stop him.
When you got the title fight against Berbick, that was the moment that everybody had worked for, cost yourself. What were your feelings of you climbing through ropes to head into that fight?
It was just like, I felt like it's the chance, like everybody was saying you're good, you're this or that. And then I kept saying to myself, I'm not going to fool. This is the time where, I can't fool myself. I'm going to really find out how good I am, you know what I mean? I'm going to match my skills against the champion's skill. And everybody say you're this, you're that, you're this and that. Well, we're going to find out now. And I just went in there with that cold attitude.
After the fight, when you had the belt?
It was a great moment. Just to have the belt, because I always dreamed about having a belt. Like I always go over to Jose Torres' house, and I always take his belt off the wall and I put it around my waist and everything. And I said, oh man, one day I'm gonna get me a belt. And he said, don't worry about me. You can have a whole bunch of them, man. Don't worry about it. He said, I wish I was fighting around your day, man. You're gonna get the belt, no problem. But someone else saying that, and you having to go through it, even though he went through it and he knows what it takes to get the belt, you going through it is a whole different story when somebody's saying, oh, you gotta be champ, putting the pressure on you, like, oh Christ, why you gotta put this pressure on me, all right? And you start to wonder when guys put this pressure on you. You don't think, well, yeah, I'm gonna be champ, because he said so. You start to worry even more. It's like, oh my God, these guys like put all this pressure on you. People like, they say, I bet my life on you, like, yeah, man, you gotta win, because my wife is gonna leave me, I'm gonna lose my house, come on, you have to win. They bet everything on you, and you're like, oh boy. And so, to yourself, you say, I can't let myself down, but you definitely can't let these people down either.
That is a lot of pressure. Mike, in the last 15 years, there have been 2 fighters who have transcended the sport, Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard. I mean, they're the 2 guys who America has grasped. Now they're grasping you. But those guys were guys who were great fighters, but they really played with the public. I mean, the rope-a-dope, the shuffle, they were very conscious of the fans. There's really there's no frills, there's no fanciness. You just go in there and you just do your job. Why do you think that the people are grasping you?
I can't tell you, because we have different characters, you know what I mean? Because as you know, those guys like Ray Leonard and Muhammad Ali, what can I say? They're great fighters, but they're also theatrical. You know what I mean? And that's great when people look at fighters who have the reputation of being like, their stereotype is being just straight ahead, just fighting and that's all. And these guys, you see guys like this, flamboyant and everything, and it catches your fancy, you know what I mean? But with me, it's not my nature to be a friendly guy when I'm taking care of business.
Do you notice the crowd at all?
No, not at all.
When they announce you, it's always a big, people are up on their seats. As Steve was saying before, the adrenaline is really flowing in the crowd, and you're walking through the crowd. Are you aware of any of that, or what are you thinking of as you're being introduced walking into the ring?
I'm in the ring, I just can't wait to get my hands on my opponent, and I can't wait to get my job done.
All the great champions, Lewis, Marciano, Ali, all those guys were great because they were great for a long time. Longevity, I think, is the key to their greatness. Is that something you aspire?
Well, at this particular moment I do, but at this particular, I can't tell you what I'm going to do in my life. It might come to time. I might, right now, I might fall in love with something and get soft. and don't want to fight anymore. But, you know, I can't say that now because now, you know, I have nothing on my mind but fighting. I have nothing else to look forward to but fighting. I don't want to be an actor. You know, basically, I like to fight. I don't want to do anything else, but I like to fight.
With your great success, there comes this stuff, the distractions, television, newspapers, magazines. How do you handle that at 20 years old?
Well, you know, I dislike it a great deal, but it comes with the business. You know, I can't be angry. You know, at times I used to get angry at the guys, but I can't be angry at the news reporters and the guys that come in because that's their job. They have to earn money too, just like me. You know what I mean? Like there's people that don't like boxing. You know what I mean? And they get emotional and they don't like the fighters because they fight, but they can't help it because this is what they want to do. And some people, they have no other choice but to do this.
You're right. I have no other choice to do this. The Bonecrusher. Any problems he presents to you?
Well, every man's a problem. You know, no one should be taken lightly. But this is a fight where, as you know, I'm in great shape and I'm ready to fight, and I plan to do my best and I plan a successful outcome.
Two more questions. Some people have said the greatest accolade in sports is to be the heavyweight champion of the world. Would you agree with that?
Well, I know a great deal about the sport, and I know football is also a great demand, and baseball is also a great demand. It depends on what kind of attitude or what kind of image or aura that the champion represents or the football player represents. And that depends, you know, like guys like Red Grange. When Red Grange was around, there was Jack Dempsey, and, you know, it was hard to compare between the two. And then Babe Ruth, you know, how can you pick between Babe Ruth and Jack Dempsey and who at the same time, and everybody loves both of them, you know what I mean? And it's just the aura that they give off. And at this moment, you know, I think baseball and football is giving off a great aura, and people are crazy about it. But as far as heavyweight champion from the past, yes. In the past, it has been. At this particular moment, I don't know, because boxing is not at the high point like it used to be.
Since Ali retired, the heavyweight division has really lost a lot of its glamour. I mean, Larry Holmes was a champion, but he never was really able to capture the public. Do you hope to restore the glamour back to the heavyweight division?
Well, I hope, like, for myself and everybody else that precedes me, like whoever I happen to lose the title to is a great fighter also, who's a great guy who the public loves also. I want to continue to go on like that, like it was when Dempsey and Tunney, like after everybody lost the title, everybody was still great champions preceding them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. How would you characterize your style of fighting?
A very aggressive, elusive style.
How would you characterize your personality as a fight draws near, as it gets closer and closer?
And basically, I'm just a very moody person in general. You know, I'm just that way. I'm very moody at times. And when fight time comes, you know, I don't want to be around anyone. You know, it's just the three faces that I'm familiar with, and that's all I want around me. But other than that, I don't want to be around anyone.
This is the last question. You watch a lot of fight films.
Yes.
When you watch Mike Tyson fight, you like what you see?
I never watch Mike Tyson fight because I hate what I see when I watch Mike Tyson fight.
Who do you like to watch then?
I like to watch most of the old time, like Lewis and Gans and Tony Cataneri, Benny Lynn, and those guys. But to watch Mike Tyson fight, you can't pay me to watch Mike Tyson fight.
All right. Thanks, Mike.